Good morning. I'd like to call Subcommittee 1 to order, Transportation. If we can get a roll call.
What is today?
Do we have present? We have quorum. So we got 5 present, and we have quorum. Okay. We'll start the first bill today, HB 1453. Delegate O'Rourke, he is not here, but
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I've talked to the patron. I think the issues with the farm tag was fixed in Mullen. That we hope that's one reason why we have a delayed enactment until July 1 of next year. So this, if for some reason my bill turns into a fiasco this year, we can come back and take this bill up next year. So I move to gently lay the bill on the table.
we have a motion to lay the bill on the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, if we can get a vote on the voter board.
Thank you, Chairman.
Are we anticipating Delegate Williams-Graves coming in this morning? Here she is. Committee will go at ease until she gets ready. Thank you. Call the committee back to order, and good morning, Delegate.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for letting me catch my breath.
No problem.
House Bill 1772 allows local governments to pass ordinances to provide for the lawful seizure, impounding, and disposition of unlicensed or unregistered motorcycles operated either on the highway or on private property without the consent of the property owner. The bill proposes to amend Code 46.2-915.1 to allow local governments the same authority when it comes to seizing, impounding, and the disposal of unlawfully operated all-terrain vehicles and off-road motorcycles. This bill will help local governments address and deter the increase in unlawful and reckless driving of ATVs that endanger not only riders but passers-by and have largely evaded law enforcement responses because the ATVs were just not included in the code. It also allows for the conceptual framework from the federal statutes prohibiting wire fraud, mail fraud, bank fraud, healthcare fraud, and the proposal will allow the appropriate prosecution of cases investigated by federal agencies, but which federal prosecutors choose not to charge. This is a may and not a shall, and if it is the will of the body, I ask that you pass the bill.
Thank you, Delegate. Any questions for the patron from the committee?
And we do have testimony as well.
Okay.
So I guess my question, Mr. Chairman, this is already illegal to ride on the roads, these vehicles now. Is that correct?
It is. Can I bring the attorney
Sure.
from our locality to answer the legal questions?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. My name is Ramin Fadahi. I'm the Commonwealth's attorney for the city of Norfolk. If I may answer the question from Delegate Bloxham, Yes, is the short answer. It's currently illegal to ride ATVs on the public roads, subject to certain limited exceptions, with which I know the committee is familiar, as am I. My wife is from Southwest Virginia, and I know we have a very active ATV business. This bill would not do anything to constrain that or to change any of those laws. It would simply add an additional deterrent tool to those of us who are dealing with dirt bike and ATV riders illegally riding on sidewalks, popping wheelies on roads, getting themselves killed, endangering our citizens. It doesn't expand the punishment per se, but it allows for localities at their discretion, but not required, to add an ordinance that would allow for the seizure and disposition of ATVs. There's already a provision in the code that allows this for motorcycles, but since motorcycles are not ATVs and motorcycles may or may not be off-road motorcycles, this would simply cover this mix of vehicles that we see when people are engaging in this illegal behavior. And the idea is that since most of the time we're seeing nothing more than, let's say, reckless driving or riding without a helmet or riding on the sidewalk, which people see as sort of the cost of doing business in what is called commonly bike life. This would allow for the seizure of the vehicles that they're using to do this, which would hopefully get their attention a little bit more than possibly a fine would. Again, permissive, not mandatory, not required for any locality to do it, just gives them the authority.
Stay right there, Delegate Anderson.
Good morning. So this is a real problem in Norfolk. I mean, they're terrorizing the community. Will you talk more about that and the youth challenges that they're doing? I mean, will you lean into that a little bit more? Because I don't think the members of this committee realize how bad it is in Norfolk.
Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to answer that. And I'd say that this is a problem that is nationwide. It began in Philadelphia and has spread to every major city in the United States. If you want to Google or go to YouTube and put in Bike Life Norfolk, what will pop up is not actually just Norfolk. It'll be the same group of riders putting up their videos going through the city's streets in Norfolk and then going around Mount Trashmore in the city of Virginia Beach. They are everywhere. And the problem is that they congregate, no license plates, usually masks or helmets, very little way of identifying who they are. They congregate, they ride through. And I've had complaints from Civic League members all over the city. Regardless of the neighborhood, I hear this. Up on the sidewalks, weaving in and out of traffic, totally disobeying traffic lights, traffic laws, popping wheelies, endangering pedestrians. In fact, we've already had our first bike life death, where an ATV rider got himself run over in the city of Norfolk last year. No criminal charges other than what may have adhered had he lived, but totally traumatized one of our citizens who wound up running over that person. So it's a major issue. It's one that, despite prosecutors not being funded to prosecute misdemeanors, I've told our police department I will prosecute anything down to a traffic infraction if they bring it to my attention. But it's been a major headache for our citizens and a major headache for law enforcement.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you. Appreciate the testimony. Do we have anybody in the audience who would like to speak to this matter? Anybody else for or against? We don't have anybody in the queue in the virtual world?
No.
Okay. What is the will of the body?
Mr. Chairman, just speaking to the bill, I kind of put this along with the same posture of the noise. I think the chairman's writing a letter about the noise ordinance because this is the same type of illegal behavior. The biggest problem with these, because we have them on the shore, but to catch them. I mean, I don't think law enforcement, with the way that it is now, when they come in, it's very hard to catch them because they scatter. And the same thing with the noise that Northern Virginia has been complaining so much about. You know, these groups are coming in and destroying the peace in the neighborhood, and we've heard bill after bill. So I think the chairman is going to write a letter about the noise, and to me, this fits right in with that study that I think that we need to try to get a handle on how to not only enforce it, but I mean, from a state police perspective, you've got to catch them, and then and without putting other lives in danger. So I mean, it's a real issue. With that, I make a motion at the proper time.
Delegate Anderson.
So Norfolk's different than the Eastern Shore. I represent a portion of Norfolk, and it's not a matter of whether they catch them. It's a matter if we do catch them, they lose their motorcycle. I mean, these are terrorists. These are little domestic terrorists running around in our cities, disturbing the community in wanton disregard of life. And so I think it would be fantastic if Norfolk adopted such an ordinance, was given permission to, and then the Commonwealth Attorney takes their bike and puts it on TV, and we watch it getting smashed into a car compressor. That's what we have to do. It's how we have to treat them. And so this is permissive. It doesn't. What Norfolk may do is not something that Accomack may do, or it's not something Virginia Beach may do. It gives the localities the authority to address this. And I have a motion at the appropriate time as well.
Mr. Chair.
Delegate McQuinn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, I think that catching them would be the responsibility of the localities. I mean, they and those who are that we empower as authority to protect and to make sure as communities are safe and to serve. And so, I don't want to put that on anyone other than those who are supposed to be responsible in terms of taking their responsibility to catch them. Don't want a citizen's arrest. We want people who are being empowered to do that. But what it gives the locality another tool to use, and whether again it's not shall you've got to do it. It is permissive. You may do it if you find that you need another tool. You need to be addressing this. It's interesting that this has come to our attention this morning because on yesterday I saw going down Main Street. And we were coming in, and I'm like, okay, where is the police when we need them? It's okay, and so I just think that again, I have working in local government for almost 20 years as a legislator or as an official. I just think that sometimes we are looking at things from a distance and we don't understand the impact of various things in those communities and how people are affected directly. And the fact that someone's been killed by this, Mr. Chair, I mean, in this situation, I mean, that's another reason that, people who don't have the common sense to protect themselves. Maybe we need to do some other things to help protect them. And so this is a deterrent, possibly opportunity to make sure that you're calming some things down that are going on in the local community. So, Mr. Chair,
Thank you, Delegate.
Anyway.
Yes, ma'am.
If you're ready for a motion, I move to report this bill.
Second.
Motion and second to report. Do you have any other?
Just speaking to the motion.
Speaking of the motion.
It looks like we're going to probably be breaking the Dillon rule again. I'm just opposed to having different localities do different things. So I could go from one area to another and not know the law. So that's my the other issue I have with this.
Anybody else like to speak to the motion? Okay, if we could bill up on the board, please.
Motion fails.
Motion fails to report. We have
McQuinn, yeah.
top. Motion fails to report. Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make sure that this is included in the letter, if you could tell the chairman, because this is an issue, but I think we need to do it on a holistic pattern.
So in addition, we have already asked the chairman to report, to put together a letter, and this is regarding also the exhaust noise, the issue from past we've been dealing with. This is another one we're putting together as well, and we've asked him to do so. So in full disclosure. Thank you. Okay. Last bill we have on the docket today is HB 2468. Delegate Willett, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I do have a substitute. I think that's before you.
Motion to move a substitute.
So moved.
Have a second? Second. Okay, we have motion and second. All those in favor of moving the substitute, say aye. Aye. Those not, okay. Substitute's in front of us. Proper form. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, in my professional career, I've spent several decades trying to help state agencies improve their business processes and technology. Obviously, my job is not done, but that's not the full purpose of why I'm here this morning. But I am focused on, in carrying this bill, on what I see as broken process, and that's presented us with yet another opportunity to look at an agency regulatory process that, in a lot of people's opinions, is unnecessarily redundant and also costly. And at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do with this bill is actually make it easier for Virginians to get, particularly in this environment, electric vehicles, which right now is a challenge in our market. And I think by bringing this legislation forward, we're lessening or lowering some of those hurdles that consumers face right now in Virginia to getting vehicles. And I also should state up front that the purpose of this bill is not to do something to the detriment of our traditional dealers. They provide a very important purpose as well, and if anything else, I'd like to offer to look at their processes too, because I think there's opportunity there for improvement. But to talk specifically about this bill, I think members of the committee know that cars are typically sold in Virginia through independent franchise dealerships, but for auto manufacturers who want to open their own stores and sell directly to consumers, existing law requires them to go through an administrative hearing process. The way that works is DMV determines whether there's a public interest in the manufacturer owning and operating their dealership. So what we're saying with this bill, if a manufacturer has gone through that process, the DMV process, and opened a dealership, they should not be required to keep coming back to DMV to go through the process again. That's when we would say there's already been a determination that it's in the public interest for them to operate this dealership, and they should be able to act on opening additional dealerships. It's the same manufacturer opening additional dealerships. It's not a franchise situation. It's the same manufacturer opening additional sales locations. Mr. Chairman, the best example of this model that you're probably familiar with is Tesla, which at this point, the company does not operate any franchise dealerships, or there are no Tesla franchise dealerships anywhere in the world. They've been through Virginia's administrative hearing process multiple times, and currently they're operating 4 sales centers here in Virginia. It's well established by now it's in the public interest of this company to operate its own dealerships. You could say the same for other companies like Lucid and Rivian. These are 2 other U.S.-based EV manufacturers. Mr. Chairman, we want these companies selling these cars in the country, but certainly here in Virginia. We need more of these vehicles to answer the consumer demand for them. So again, the purpose of this is to, I think, lessen an administrative burden, clean up a regulatory process. I think the governor would support this legislation because it is in keeping with his theme of lessening the bureaucracy that we have to go through in this case, as a manufacturer. And there's several folks in the room that talk to the bill and know a lot more about this than I do, so I will leave that to you and for their comments and questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Any questions for the patron? All right, I know we have a number of folks here who want to speak. I'm going to say that the folks that want to speak in favor, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the committee. B. Gonzalez with Tesla in Virginia. First of all, I want to thank you for your patience and your grace and your kindness over the last 11 years with some of you that I've been talking about Tesla coming to Virginia. This has been a very long, hard-fought, combative battle with VADA over the last 11 years. And we're still standing. We have opened 4 locations. We have grown our footprint in the Commonwealth. We've invested in EV infrastructure with superchargers across the Commonwealth. We have grown from 4 original owners to 35,000 in Virginia in just the last 11 years with very few locations. What this substitute before you does is very different. It talks about the process, and I'll talk to you a little bit about the process of how we came to be. But the substitute before you says, if you're a manufacturer and you only manufacture electric vehicles and you don't have franchise agreements and you've been approved by the DMV, then you don't have to go through that process again. This does not upend the franchise system because we don't have a franchise agreement in Virginia, in the United States, in the world. The opponents, all of them will line up, all our friends, all my very good friends at VADA and with the manufacturers will tell you it'll upend the system. It cannot. It cannot, because we do not have a franchise agreement. That's the crux of this issue. We have met the public interest statute. We've met it again and again and again. We have been through hearings. We have hired economists, expert witnesses. I've been FOIA'd. We've had lots of noise and litigation and before DMV. We've not had a single franchise dealer in the Commonwealth harmed since Tesla came into the market. Not one. Not a single one. They're doing quite well. In fact, VADA just had you hired half this building to pass a franchise bill. And the proponents of the bill said it did not affect Tesla or Lucid or Rivian because we don't have franchise agreements. Senator Serval is a Tesla owner. He made that comment as well as Delegate Leftwich in the committee. What we're talking about today is the process. And the process will still be in place for any company coming in. If you have a subsidiary, my other friends in the manufacturing business, Ford, GM, Volkswagen, they'll all stand here, Auto Lines, and oppose the bill because they don't like that we are able to sell directly. But they are in the franchise system themselves. This bill says if you don't have a franchise agreement, it only applies to you. If they come to you and say a subsidiary can be created in the Commonwealth, and that's very possible, then they would still have to go through the process to meet that public interest statute. So the process doesn't change. What we're asking for is if you've been through the process and you manufacture EV vehicles by themselves, nothing else, then the process shouldn't take you 200 some days. We fought for the Richmond location for 3 years. This company is coming to Virginia to expend capital resources, investment, grow their company, hire people. Let me tell you, I'm so proud to represent Tesla from the get-go. 11 years ago, someone told me that I was representing a company that manufactured glorified golf carts. We make the best electric vehicles in the world. The technology, American-made vehicles, the technology has elevated every single manufacturer. Every single franchise dealer is better because Tesla's in the market. That's where we've proven our public interest. I will tell you, Mr. Chairman, the language in the substitute was language that was adopted in Colorado. And I've shared with you an op-ed that Don Hall wrote in 2020 in the Automotive News magazine, which he claims that same amendment does not hurt. It was a win for Colorado franchise dealers. That's the same language we're asking for in Virginia. VADA comes to you every single year with a tweak here and a tweak there and a tweak there for the franchise system. You've never seen Tesla here. They supported clean economy, clean car legislation. You didn't see Tesla anywhere. We've kept our head down. We have focused on growing our business in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So I'm asking you to please allow us to have the opportunity to continue to grow. We've met the burden of proof. We've met the high bar time and time and time again. We're asking to continue to grow our footprint in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I appreciate your time. I know what I'm up against. You have a lot of friends. I understand it. But we don't come here and ask, ever. And they come here every year to tweak the franchise system to protect their dealers. Again, the crux of this issue is we do not have a franchise agreement. That's the basis of what we're asking for. So I really appreciate your time, and I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak to or for this bill? It's got to be more than one person. Anybody else? Anybody in the virtual world? No. Okay, I'm going to flip it to the other side. Those who want to speak against the bill, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, good morning. Ann Gambardella, I'm a staff attorney with the Virginia Auto Dealers Association. I wanted to provide a little bit more context and perhaps fill in some information that was omitted about the way the franchise code works. Virginia code requires that new vehicles be sold through dealers that are independent of the manufacturer. That is what the code requires. It's required that for many years. It's not an unusual requirement. You see it in many states across the country. There are limited exceptions to that standard requirement. The manufacturers who have chosen to comply with the law and sell through dealers, when they want to establish a new dealership, they have to notify affected dealers. They have to give those dealers the right to protest. And if there's a protest, they go through a hearing, just like Tesla. If a dealer wants to enforce any of the rights that we have sought over the years to protect their Virginia businesses, those dealers would also have to file for a hearing and go through the same hearing process, just like Tesla. Let's make clear, Tesla wants to go around the law and use an exception. In doing so, they need to prove that they fit that exception. It is not an exception simply that they are operating in the public interest. The inquiry and the decision the commissioner makes, if you read that code section, is that there is no dealer available, no dealer independent of the manufacturer or subsidiary thereof available in the community or trade area to operate the franchise in a manner consistent with the public interest. So each time you have to show there isn't a dealer available where you want to open. This would be akin to saying, well, you granted me a zoning variance on this one piece of property, so forever and ever, every piece of property I get the same variance. It's just not a realistic short-circuiting of an important process. And then lastly, Tesla was granted the opportunity to open 3 stores on July 27th, 2021 through a commissioner decision. They opened stores in Norfolk and Arlington in 2022. The store in Charlottesville still isn't open, according to their own materials. So I would just suggest to you it is not our franchise statutes that are holding things up. So again, this is not that Tesla's concerned with the processes being equal or the delay. They just want no process. And we just think that is not the special treatment that should be the subject of the General Assembly's action today. And we ask you to oppose the bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Fred Helm on behalf of the Alliance for Automotive Innovation. That is the association of car manufacturers like Ford, General Motors, Volkswagen, and many, many others. The reason we oppose this bill is, why 2 separate rules? It's a very, very competitive EV market out there. Our members go toe-to-toe with Tesla every single day. They're investing. They're building the best EVs in the market, in my opinion. There's frankly there's just no rationale for the separate rules. I'm glad that Ms. Gonzalez brought up the franchise bill that came up through this subcommittee, a week or 2 ago, and we see a number of those bills, and that's fine. We usually work it out with our friends with the dealer association. But that bill made crystal clear, if it wasn't already, manufacturers build and dealers sell. That's been the rule, and that bill there made it crystal clear if it wasn't already. The Virginia law also provides, starting year after next, we have to build and sell a certain number of EVs. That's a different committee, but I think you're all familiar with that bill. And we understand it. We're going to build those EVs and deliver them. But to have 2 separate rules is not okay. It's a bad policy exception. We ask you to vote no on this bill. This bill basically just takes a bad policy exception and expands it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Christine Noonan with Reed Smith on behalf of General Motors. We support the current framework and oppose the bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Gonzalo with the Virginia Independent Automobile Dealers Association, and on behalf of our nearly 3,200 independent dealers who represent mostly small businesses that are family-owned, we are opposed to this bill as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I've got a question for DMV about the process.
Okay. Is the commissioner here? There she is. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Linda Ford, Acting DMV Commissioner.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Ford. Good to see you. My question is on the process. We have 2 different processes. And it looks like to me that the way this is presented to me here, it's only EVs versus franchise dealers. But I think my understanding is there are other people that can do manufacturer direct that goes through your process. I think it's trailers can do direct, campers. I mean, this process is not just, it's framed here as a EV versus manufacturer, but this process has been long-standing. Is that my understanding of that?
Yes, there are other manufacturers, motorcycles, trailers, RVs that follow a similar process. It's a different code section, but it's the same process.
Any more questions for the Commissioner? Thank you. Anybody else have any questions, any further questions? I'm going to let Delegate Willett come up for last word.
Now, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thanks for your indulgence this morning. I know there are obviously two sides or two different views on this issue. I just come back to the fact that this body created a code that enables these manufacturers to go through a process to get these approvals. And what we're saying is that when they do go through that process, when a public interest is found, that they shouldn't have to repeat that process again. It really is just a simplification of the regulatory bar. My goal here is to make it easier for Virginia drivers, Virginia consumers to get these vehicles. And right now, I think there are a number of barriers out there. And the last thing I would want to do as a state is to be putting up barriers for these manufacturers to come here and sell these amazing cars when the consumer demand is there. It's clearly there. So I hope to be, this body to recognize that and to put this legislation forward. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Delegate McGuire, did you have a...
Speaking to the bill,
please.
I just want to say that I'm a business owner myself, and I think fair is fair. And if all other auto dealers have to do a franchise, I think Tesla or the electric company should do the same thing. So I would ask that we vote no on this.
Okay, do you want to put that in a motion? Actually, 1 second. Let me see if Delegate Anderson has a point.
I was just going to make a motion when the appropriate time came.
Whoever wants to take the first shot, go
I'll
ahead.
make a motion to lay the bill on the table.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to lay the bill on the table. Please go to the voter board. Okay, the bill gets laid on the table with a vote of 7-2. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, sir, please. Mr. Chairman.
I don't disagree with that ruling, but I would prefer that I be given the privilege to work with DMV to review the process in place. I mean, there's a process, and this was unique because this process was for manufacturer distributors. And it was agreed to. The terms and conditions, when it was put in place, were agreed to. And that's what they looked to modify those agreements by this legislation. I understand the timeline associated with the process. And I think the timeline, I've worked with Ms. Ford, I've talked with Ms. Ford and others, I think the timeline can be improved. And it would help accelerate Tesla's problem in getting a dealership approved and in place. So with the agreement of this subcommittee, I would like the privilege to write a letter to Mrs. Ford and ask her to look at the process, report back to the patron of the bill and to this committee if she sees there is an improvement that is available to help the process along.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion.
It's not a proper motion. It's tabled. We'll write a letter.
Okay.
Yeah, if you'd be so kind, Mr. Chairman, if you can go ahead and move forward with that process.
Okay.
I think we would just say that we approve, and we can't accept it considering the bill's already been voted on.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I have a parliamentary inquiry back to 1772.
Okay.
So there was a tie vote. There's no prevailing side. If a member wishes to vote now that is here, can we reconsider that motion?
We can reconsider the motion.
Okay. Well, I move to reconsider the motion.
Okay, we're going to come back to HB 1772.
We need a voice vote.
If we can go ahead and a voice vote to reconsider. I need a motion for that first.
Motion to reconsider. Second.
Motion is second. All those to reconsider a vote, say aye. Aye. Those not?
No.
Okay, the motion to reconsider is approved. Now, it's the bill's in proper form. I
Move to report.
We have a motion to report. Do I have a second? Second. Motion to report and a second for the bill to report. If it could go to the voter board again. Thank you. Okay, the bill reports out 5-4. Thank you. Any other business in front of us? Okay, the committee shall rise.